Okay, so welcome to the VIP program. You should all be new students. There's nothing wrong with returning students being here, but there's no requirement for the returning students. We want all the new students here so that you can get up to speed, get some starting information. So, welcome to the program. One of the goals of VIP here is to do something exciting, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more, that integrates research and education. At universities, faculty, at universities like Georgia Tech, faculty do a lot of research. It's one of the ways that they actually get promotion and credit and involved in the research activities, the university activities in general. And then they also teach, and traditionally those two are separate things. VIP brings those two things together, where faculty can bring their passion for research and their interest in education. Hopefully they have some interest in teaching if they're at a university, together in a classroom. So you actually will find that most of the advisors in this team are very passionate on these teams, are very passionate about what they're doing. They're excited because they get to both teach and they get to work on interesting projects. And from your perspective, that should be interesting because you get to work on interesting projects rather than getting yet another lecture about something that's been taught in universities for the last 20 years. It should be hopefully new and interesting information. By doing that, that enables innovation. We now have, instead of one person, faculty member, and maybe a graduate student or two working on something, you all get exposure to that innovation process that is part of research. And I will admit that sometimes research feels like drudgery because you're just trying things to see if they work, hopefully trying things with some intelligent plan, but often that means going through things that are not all that exciting. But in the end, try and keep in mind that each one of these teams has a research vision, has something that they're trying to accomplish that is new and interesting. So, as I said, returning students don't need to be here, but you're welcome to sit through it again. And this is meant to be an introduction to the program and also to give you some of those things like syllabus and grading requirements that you might have a lot of questions about. All right, slide 2. So the idea behind the VIP program is to put together the time, the context, and the mentoring that allow this sort of thing with undergraduate students engaging in research to work. So from the faculty perspective, they have time to come to teach the classes, which really are not classes, they're more research meetings. From the student perspective, all right, you have time by the fact that we've created classes that you get credit for. So by giving both the faculty and the students time, we've created a context where we can bring faculty and students together in an interesting, around an interesting topic. And then also, because you're involved for multiple semesters, hopefully, we'd like each of you to be involved for 3, 4, or more semesters on the team. That creates also part of the time and context to bring that together in a group, and then the undergraduate students, the new students, the returning undergraduate students, the graduate students, and then the faculty get a context that leads toward mentoring, where essentially now the returning students, and this is something you should know, the returning students are your best expert on what you need to learn because they've gone through the same process. It turns out that as people have learned something and get their mind around things after several years, they really sometimes don't have the right perspective on how you might approach something. So the returning students, the other people on your team, are some of your best context for learning, but at the same time, those returning students are learning from the graduate students are learning from the faculty, and really everybody's all working together, okay? But one of the things that you'll need to do on a VIP team is to learn how to communicate within that structure. So how to talk to each other, how to talk to the returning students, when to ask them questions. Don't get caught up in a problem so long that you're wasting your time. Don't ask them questions so frequently that you're wasting their time and frustrating them, okay? When I first started as an undergraduate in engineering, I thought all I needed to learn was math and how to solder, okay? If I could conquer those two things, I would be a great engineer, and it turns out that's not completely true. I also needed to learn how to work on teams. Hopefully VIP gives you a context to learn that, and that turns out, if you wouldn't believe it, is something that when recruiters want to hire you for a job, that is something that they like to hear about. So VIP turns out to be a very interesting thing to talk about when you're applying for a job, trying to distinguish your resume from everybody else from every other school that got the same GPA. Okay, so the idea here is that you will see a full range of ideas in your discipline as well as other disciplines. Try to expose you to the research and development process. Dig deep into something. So if you find that you're not getting involved in something at a deep level within your VIP team, then speak up, ask. Hey, I'm kind of bored with this. Can I get involved in something a little bit deeper? Okay. Learn about and work with other disciplines. It turns out every one of these VIP teams are multidisciplinary. I had an interesting team that I met with this week. It's not one of my teams, but I was just trying to help out getting started. And it turns out there were approximately 8 students in the class, and each one of those students was from a different major. There was no 2 students of the same major. So truly multidisciplinary. So you get to work with other disciplines, and you'll be surprised to find what skills and what ideas and what different perspectives people from different disciplines can bring. We want to create ideas that move a project forward. This is basically what innovation is about, right? You're learning how to be creative, how to move things forward. Sometimes that requires work, sometimes that requires brainstorming. Okay? Join the university community. As I said, this is what faculty get interested in, research, okay? So you get involved with that community, you get involved with a group of peers, you get involved with people from multiple disciplines, and hopefully in the process you have some fun. So, all right. Hopefully all of you have met with your team already. There was all the teams met this week. If you didn't, you need to catch up and find out what's going on. At some point, probably in the next little bit of this week and a little bit of next week, you should be hearing a progress report from the returning students on what was done in previous semesters. Okay. One of the things I tell students on my team is that we use a wiki as a tool for documenting the team's work. Okay. I am not the one that puts stuff up on the wiki. The students are the one that puts stuff up on the wiki, but I tell the new students, go look at the wiki, read the wiki, and if you can't understand something there, then ask. Okay? If you ask people, well, what's this about, and there's a nice, clean explanation of it up on the wiki for my team, I'm going to say you really should be going and reading about it on the wiki. On the other hand, if you've read the wiki and said, I don't understand this, then you're showing me that you took some initiative. Okay? If you read the wiki, tell me that you don't understand it, and then go back and fix or make a better explanation on the wiki after you've heard an explanation of it and thought it out, then you're really doing what you should be doing on the VIP team. Okay? You're contributing. Oh, let's not forget this red thing here. So part of this working on teams is also some social aspects. You need to get to know the people on your team so you know how to communicate with them. Okay? Do people like to communicate more by text or email or by IM or Twitter or whatever, the current technology is? I'm not up to speed on all these things. So don't try and send me something on one of these newest apps that's more recent than email or texting, because I won't get it. But that's that's a simple example, and in order to learn about those things, we want you to kind of get to know people on your team. So your advisors should take you out to dinner. Twist their arm a little bit. Tell them Dr. Abler said you get dinner at their expense, and get something better than McDonald's. You'll have to pick a night to get together when everybody can get together, or most of you can get together. So work on that. Make that happen. Take the initiative. Okay. So these VIP teams function like design research firms. Okay? In other words, if you were out getting hired and joined a small project of 10 to 15 people working on something in industry, that would be pretty much how these VIP teams work. Okay? They're not a lecture class. Okay? One of the points I make here is how many of you feel like in large lecture classes what you're really trying to do is figure out the answer on the exam that the professor has on a key he has behind their back and already knows the answer, okay? Just everybody been in a class like that where you're basically just studying to do that, something yet again? How many of you then think that when you go out and get a job, your boss is going to give you a problem that he already knows the answer to? Okay, already has the problem solved, but he wants you to do it anyway. Okay, doesn't work like that. Most people would not be in a manager position that long if that's what they did. So, don't be surprised on your VIP team if somebody asks you to do something and they don't know the answer, right? That's part of actually being in a team and working on something, okay? These projects, most of these VIP teams, the VIP teams stick around for a few years. Ed and I co-advise eStadium, or I guess it's now Stadium IOPT, Internet of Things and Internet of People and Things. Yes, it's a mouthful. That team has been around since 2000? 2001, okay. So it's a 16-year team. That's fairly long for a VIP team, but most of them do stick around for several years. So there's some continuity to these teams. And to preserve that continuity, we expect the students, again, to be embedding knowledge in the team. We call it the embedded knowledge in the team, all right? So that's why you need to talk to the returning students just as importantly as the grad students and the advisors. I make the point to my class that I have, I work with 2 different teams. That's a total of a little over 40 students. Collectively, those 40 students have a lot more brain power than I do. Please don't make me the bottleneck by being the only one that they ask questions of and talk to. If those 40 students were to talk to each other, a lot more will get done. Okay. In order for this to work, everybody has to be self-motivated and active, okay? We're not giving you all the same assignment, right? Even on the same team, you may get some common assignments to start the semester just to get you up to speed, but eventually everybody's going to be working on a little bit different thing. Again, think about that research team for a company. Do you think that boss is going to be paying 20 people to produce exactly the same result? Not really. I mean, hopefully they may be working on a common project, but they all should be working on a different aspect of it. So that's the same way that VIP works. And because of that, we can't give you one common assignment. That means you need to be active and self-motivated about working on things yourself, okay? I can't give 40 people an assignment and say, okay, here's the assignment, it's due next Friday. I get 40 answers on the same thing again. It's not very exciting. All right. The last thing I want to hear at the end of a semester from a student is, well, I did everything exactly as you told me. I'm like, that's nice, but get involved, get motivated. All right. So everybody does disciplinary work. Everyone does presentations. Everybody needs to be active. As you're involved with the teams, the first semester we say most of your first semester is about learning. Okay? Learning to use the tools, learning what the team is about, learning what the concepts in the area are, what other work has been done in the area. The second semester you're on a team, and maybe third and other following semesters, is where you actually start contributing to the team's progress. Okay? And hopefully within around the third semester, fourth semester, depending on the team and your personality, is when we actually ask you to start taking leadership roles. Could you manage this part of this project and coordinate between a few other students working on it and help bring the new students up to speed? All right. This is the official syllabus schedule. It's an eye chart, which is one of the reasons why we're going to try and record things and put it up on the wiki. We've already been through week 1, so hopefully you've all met. And we have this orientation. First thing I'll say about this orientation, 3 o'clock Fridays, we don't normally meet. This is the only time during the semester that we expect to meet. If we have an opportunity for something interesting that comes up later during the semester, we will send out an email announcement at least a couple of days ahead of time saying you need to be there at, excuse me, need to be there at 3 o'clock on Friday in the College of Business 100. So this should be the first day you have to hike over here, or hopefully the last day. Next week, you should be coming up to speed on which topic area you're going to participate in your team. About the middle of the semester, we'll go into this a little bit more detail. You're going to go through an initial grading progress. You're going to do some peer evaluations, which are anonymous. And you're also going to submit your design notebook, which I will talk about in a second, for a midterm review. All right? And then basically, at the end of the semester, you're going to do the same thing. You finish up your team and do your final presentations during the last week or last normal week of classes that your team meets. There are no finals in VIP teams. Okay? So that's your official notification that there is a presentation due on that last week of classes. All right. So grading, the purpose of grading, of course, one of the purposes is to get feedback to you. How are you doing? How could you do better? Okay. We need to check on team progress. An important part of grading, and this is why we have peer evaluations, is also for us, the advisors, to know what is going on with the team that I can't see. Because it's really hard for me to see how two people are working together or not working together. So that's one of the reasons we do peer evaluations. Can we see if there are structural problems in the team that we could perhaps help fix? Okay? Make sure the team is on the right track. And generally, what do we need to do to make good progress on this team? All right. So the first part of this is peer evaluations. You'll get an email during about the 6th week of classes, the dates on this syllabus I had up there, that say you need to go in and do peer evaluations. Okay, they're online. There's a URL there, but the URL will be in the email. Okay, the other thing that will be in the email is a deadline that the peer evaluation system gets disabled at sometime, 5 p.m. Friday. Every semester I get an email from 3 or 4 people saying, I didn't get it done by Friday at 5 p.m. Can you turn it back on? Because when we say Friday at 5 p.m., that means at 5 p.m. the computer goes and cuts off further entries. And if you don't have it done by then you have an incomplete on that part of your VIP team project. Okay? You get a whole week to get it done, so it's not like, it's a time race. Okay? It takes probably about 15 or 20 minutes to go through and answer some questions about everybody else on your team. How much did you work with them? Did they communicate well with you? Were they effective team members, or were there challenges in working with them? We also have a text box on there for comments. The most useful thing in those comments is constructive criticism. This person was a really intelligent person, but sometimes didn't make the meetings, and therefore it was a little bit of a problem to coordinate with what they were doing. Comments like that the advisors like to hear. Okay? Because again, these are skills that you need to learn, that person needs to learn before they get in the job world. Because in the job world, that could cost them a job if they're not good at it. So we want to try and give them that feedback now, part of education. The peer evaluation process is confidential. In other words, you don't see who evaluated you. You don't see the evaluation results at all, just the advisors do. We are working on the possibility of just seeing some of the general aggregate, your total score on this or your total review on that. That's yet in the works, though, so that's not a committed thing. The advisors, so the input all goes to the advisors. After the peer evaluations are done and turned in, and this is why the timelines are hard, is then the advisors will also collect your design notebook. Now, Ed, do you have a sample design notebook? Oh, I do. Everybody here needs to get a design notebook. There are rules for these notebooks. The most important rule is that it has to be sewn in pages, okay? Can't be a 3-ring binder, can't be spiral bound. That comes from legal context. If you make notes of something in here, it is legal documentation. If you get into industry, that's important in terms of patents, trademarks, and other intellectual property type issues. So we want you to learn to get started in that process. The rule in grading is at the end of the semester, if it's not in your design notebook, you didn't do it. Okay? Now, I need you to think outside of the box a little bit on this, because most of you are going to be inclined to use about 75% of your design notebook for writing down what happened in your team meeting. Okay? Well, if I'm your advisor, I have a pretty good idea what happened in your team meeting. Okay? You certainly should write down things, because if you don't know what the other people on your team are doing, you're doing a very poor job of teamwork. Okay? But more importantly, I need to know, what were you doing when you weren't in a team meeting? What were you reading about? What were you working on? So if you spend some time surfing the web reading about topics on your team, jot down the URL. Okay? Make a note. In addition to that, we also want you to do to-do lists in these. So as you're working in a team meeting and you realize, hey, there's something I need to get done, write the thing that you need to get done down, put a little checkbox out on the left margin, okay? And when you actually get it done, check it off. Why would you want to do that? How many of you have ever realized I need to get something done and then it's gotten lost in the process? Okay? That's why. If you go back and glance at your notes from last week and see that there were unchecked things, it's a real quick way to figure out what you need to do quickly, right? All right. There are some other details, and we do have up on the wiki, vip.gatech.edu/wiki, a copy of a good design notebook. Okay? One of the students who was in Rich Reese, Ed has his design notebook there, has volunteered to let us use his as an example of an excellent design notebook. For some reason, nobody's volunteered to let us use their design notebook as an example of a bad design notebook. So. But there is a scan of that design notebook up on the wiki. Okay? Again, everybody here can get on the wiki. All you have to have is a Georgia Tech account. You can actually edit any page on the wiki. It makes a log of who edited it, so if you go tromping on somebody else's material, we know who did it, which is usually enough to discourage people from doing stupid things. Okay? But please don't do stupid things. But the flip side is, since we have a record of it, it's version controlled. So if you make an edit and decide, hey, wait a minute, that wasn't right, you can just click the rollback button and undo your edit. So there's infinite undos. So don't be shy about putting something up on the wiki just because you're not sure that, you know, it's going to be right or that everybody likes it. Put it up there and let people comment on it. Say, well, maybe that wasn't quite right. You get some feedback. Other areas of documentation that we count are code if you're writing code. Now, one of the things about this is that not everybody writes code on every team. Not every team has anybody writing, you know, not all the teams have a coding part of the team at all. Okay? But if you do have code, check your code into whatever version control system you're using. Git is the one that we commonly support. Okay? And make sure that you comment your code. Okay? Make sure you understand your team's process for code control. All right, 33% of the grade for the semester is based on your documentation. All right. Now we said if it's not in your design notebook, you didn't do it. That means that we also are using your design notebook to verify a few other things. Okay. One is, what were your efforts and accomplishment? Okay. If there were quizzes, assignments, labs, reading assignments, whatever, that counts under efforts and accomplishments. What were your grade on those? But also, were you self-motivated? Did you sit around waiting for somebody to tell you what to do, or did you get involved and ask questions and come up with ideas and think about things? Okay. Effectiveness also counts. You know, did you spend a lot of time wasting other people's time, or were you actually contributing to the team? So this counts as a third of your grade, and teamwork counts as another third of your grade. And I put 33% because I was too lazy to type 33 and a third. Okay. But for teamwork, we want you to be involved in the team. Okay. That means, first of all, showing up at the team meeting. Okay. Now, What do you do if you have a problem, you're sick, you can't make a team meeting? Okay. Generally, good policy would be just like in industry. Send an email before the meeting saying, I can't make it today to the meeting because, XYZ, I have a doctor's appointment. For whatever reason, and you don't have to go into a bunch of personal information, but just give enough to know that heads up that you couldn't make the meeting, and then also mention in that email, but these were the things I accomplished during the week, okay? And these are the open questions I have, or issues, or things that I think need to be done next. Okay? What you're doing is showing that even that you didn't make the meeting, you still want to be involved in the team. Okay? Just like if you were at the workplace, all right, and you can't make a meeting, let your boss know, but let all the team members know too. Again, because teams don't work if everybody wants one person, the boss, the manager, the advisor, to communicate all the information. You have a bottleneck, that's not effective. All right? Communication skills. Are you easy to get a hold of? Do you answer email? Okay? Or whatever other form that your team uses to talk about. Now, something else in communication skills I like to emphasize. If you get stuck on something, don't wait until the next meeting to raise the question. Send an email. Okay? We only meet once a week for most of these teams, because that's the minimum amount. If we don't meet if we don't meet at least that often, then things really do hang up. But if we had more meetings, okay, we would just be wasting more of your time. All right? So we want you involved in working on something. And if you're working on something, you get out of the team meeting, you spend 10 minutes and you run to a dead stop, and then you wait for the next team meeting. How much work did you get done in a week? About 10 minutes worth. That's not real impressive, right? So, ask questions. Share ideas, listen to other people's, answer other people's questions, okay? And then leadership skills, and this is especially important for the returning students, but you should be thinking about this. And you can even be thinking about this for the returning students, because you can put this in your peer evaluations. Were the returning students, excuse me, were they helpful? Did they give you an idea of what to do? Okay. Did they focus on just one student, or did they share information with everybody? Okay. Eventually, we want everybody to be involved in getting some experience with leadership. All right. Grading feedback. Once the advisors collect your design notebooks and look at the peer evaluations, they do a grade entry on the same system that you do the peer evaluations on. And once they're done with all the grading, they can release those grades to you. And it's not just a grade, it's a complete performance assessment that you can read through, including, most importantly, their comments to you. Now, don't take that as all the possible information you could get. If you don't understand something, go talk to your advisor. Set up an office meeting and say, hey, I'm a little worried about how I could do a better job of interacting with my team, or getting involved with whatever aspect of the team that you're interested in. So speak to them, have a meeting with them. Meet with them before the end of the semester when you're unhappy with your grade. Right? And the advisors can also, of course, I encourage the new students to come and meet with me. Right? So if you're a new student on one of my teams and you have a question at midterm, or even if you don't have a question, you just want to help me remember your name because I'm bad with names, set up an office meeting. Come and talk about how you're doing and what you think about the team. Okay? All right. So just to highlight some of that, hopefully I've already mentioned this, but I wanted to give you some attributes between successful and unsuccessful team members. Okay? And that translates effectively to good grades versus poor grades. All right? Successful gets to know the other people on their team. Okay? That's why we offer team dinners. That's why we try and do introductions. But that also takes some effort on your part. Okay? If you're a solitary worker, you're not part of a team, that 33% teamwork grade is going to be painful. All right, active, self-motivated. I think I've hit that a couple times already. But if you just sit around waiting for assignments, I am going to think about that as the same way as an employee that goes up the back staircase every morning, gets into his office, closes the door, pulls out the newspaper, gets his cup of coffee, and tries to hide in his office till the 5 o'clock whistle, okay? Right? That's not being active and engaged in the team. Reliable. Okay, we're looking for people that are reliable. What does that mean? That means if you say you'll get something done by 4 o'clock on Friday, it's done at 4 o'clock on Friday, because often, if you're working on a team project, the parts have to come together to make a whole project. If one person doesn't do their part, then everybody else has to do that after the fact. Right? If you're not reliable, you're messing up the whole team. Okay? Communicates. Again, we've pushed on that one. But the opposite of communicates is waits for others to ask what you're doing, waits for others to tell you what to do. If you're always waiting around for your advisor to give you something to do, or your returning students or grad students, you're not doing it right. Okay? And you need to document your work. Okay? My analogy there is if you go into a workplace and think that solving the problem in your head and not contributing it to the work, not writing it down, okay? You think just solving the problem in your head and not mentioning it will get you a paycheck? No. You actually have to contribute it to the team, contribute it to the company's goals. All right. So that's the big grading part. Any questions on grading and peer evaluations? Okay. If you have questions during the semester about some of these higher level things, you can contact me. Ultimately, your team advisor is the best source of information on some of these things, but there are some questions that I can help answer, okay? As can Dr. Coyle or Chris, who's sneaking out the back of the room. We also have some common resources for VIP, okay? One is that we have a server cloud. Some of the projects want a web server or a compute server or whatever. We have the capability of assigning virtual servers to teams. We actually have some teams that use a virtual server for every student as a software development system so that they can test web-based software and see whether or not it works without breaking the production system. We have meeting rooms. Van Leer 465, Van Leer 483, and Klaus 1440. You will have BuzzCard access to those rooms. Even if your team is meeting in some room chosen by your advisor, okay, those are the common VIP meeting rooms, you as a VIP member can use those rooms, especially after hours. With your BuzzCard, you can get into the buildings, you can get into the rooms at any time. You can use those rooms for VIP work, okay? If there's somebody else in there using it for VIP work, then you need to be considerate of them, okay? So don't disrupt the team meeting, right? But other than that, they're shared facilities. We expect you to act as adults and us not to have to run around and play hall monitors on the rooms. But if we do have to do that, we have video cameras in all those rooms and we record them. And every once in a while, I have to pull a video recording and send somebody a picture of them doing something they shouldn't be doing and saying, please don't do this. Okay. There are other facilities on campus that are available to VIP students. Some of the senior design labs in ECE, for example, VIP students can use those. The Invention Studio in mechanical engineering, facilities that are open to VIP teams. Sometimes often your advisor will have some research infrastructure. Of course, you should talk to your advisor about that. Also, we do have on the wiki, we have some recorded tutorials. Most of those are getting a little out of date at this point. Okay. Those are the resources. The syllabus, the complete syllabus is up on the wiki. I encourage everybody in the room to get on the wiki, find their team page, the wiki page for their team, and go put their name and contact information on there. That's a requirement if you're on one of my teams, eStadium or Intelligent Digital Communication. So get your contact information. I like to see your name, email address, and cell phone number, okay? Because if there's a problem, you're working on something and there's a problem at the last minute, I want to know your number to text you or call you. We have people going over to the football stadium during games, for example. Sending them an email at that point is probably not effective if they're 5 minutes late and need to know how to get a pass to get into the game. We do expect, and this is mentioned on the syllabus, we expect people to be responsible adults. I don't like dealing with the exceptions to that. Okay, but I expect everybody in here knows how to be a responsible adult, knows that VIP resources are for VIP use, and knows that it's really kind of rude and improper to disturb somebody else's materials or to do something that they weren't authorized to do. Okay. Check with your advisor for exceptions or additions, and listen to what they have to say also. But hopefully, again, to end this on a positive note, benefits to you of VIP. Okay. This should take your experience with design and discovery to a new level, something you won't get in a traditional lecture or university environment. Because you're involved for multiple semesters, you get a new depth and breadth of exposure. Okay. You can participate in a large research effort. And sometimes I have to stop and remind myself to tell the students why it's research, because they're working on something that feels kind of mundane. So if you feel like you don't understand the research vision of the project, send an email to your advisor or ask in class, what are we trying to accomplish here? Okay. That's something you should be trying to get a hold of very quickly and understand. Okay. By being involved with this improves the undergraduate curriculum. And proof of that is essentially the fact that recruiters are very interested in hearing about what you've done on VIP teams. I've talked to people from companies and they say, we want to hire all your VIP students. Can we see all their resumes? And I have to be a little careful about that because there are academic policies about that. But yes, take your design notebook to your interview and talk about what you did on your team. What was that problem that you solved as part of your team? That gets you around a lot of those questions like, tell us your 3 greatest weaknesses, right? Which nobody is really kind of, tries to come up with something intelligent to say to that. You can see and get a chance to actually apply your course knowledge. One of the things I find that in VIP teams, the students are actually suddenly going, hey, I learned about that before. I never really understood why things work that way, but now that I'm using this on a team, I understand that. So suddenly people get insight into things that they learned in previous semesters. Again, I've probably beat this to death, but you learn to work on a team and even get an opportunity to lead. Okay? And learn to do something interesting and actively, rather than just crunching the same homework assignment out of the back of the textbook that everybody else has done 350 million times. Okay. Questions? Thank you for joining. Anybody have any questions? Yes?
On these slides, are these also in the wiki?
Chris, are they on the wiki yet?
They're on the wiki and they're also on the webpage, on our VIP webpage. You see a white menu block there. Saying here's the orientation. Click here to the slide. So it's that.
Thank you.